everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you or someone you love is into vintage, cottagecore, romantic handmade items, or honestly just like cozy nostalgia, this is your Christmas gift guide, because as someone who comes on here and makes impractical crafts and lifestyle content, always with a vintage splash, I have been told that I am quite hard to shop for in real life. People kind of struggle with it. So I decided to come on here and help you out. I've broken it down by category and I'll put them down below, but make sure you stay to the end. The last category is stocking stuffers that are all under $15. Just a quick note, this list is vintage inspired, which means that all of these items are available online, and so they are not true vintage. I'll be linking everything you see to save you some of that holiday stress, which is well known this time of year. And some of those links may be affiliate, which helps out my channel at no extra cost to you. So without any further ado, let's hop straight on into this first category, which is for the vintage decorator. For this, I want you to think of the I Spy Treasure Hunt book, the 2003 Peter Pan, any kind of period drama. That's the vibe you're going to be thinking of while shopping for this person. So, starting off strong, we have brass candlestick holders. These, I happen to really like brass. These you could get in gold or in maybe silver, but I think brass is definitely the way to go. Next is a cut glass vase. I think that these are pretty versatile. You can use them for either living plants or for dried flowers. They always look good on a table. Just saying. Next we have a vintage oil lamp. You could go like the camping style, or you could go a little more like Regency era. Either way, I think that they look great. You can also get it so that it either works with a flame or you can get an electric one. So keep that in mind for whoever you're dealing with and whether or not they're responsible with fire. But I think this is a great way to warm up a room. Ornate wall hooks, vintage style clocks. Okay, next I have ornate picture frames. These remind me of my Cottagecore or 70s dad video. They add a little more interest instead of just being flat. Next is a golden oval mirror. I've also seen them white, but I do prefer the gold or metal tones. Next we have wall candle holders, which I love, the sconces, but I think that this is a great way to kind of bring in that nostalgic look, and also if you get a candle to provide more light, and who doesn't need more light? Next is wicker baskets. These are always a safe bet. I will link some down below, but like, come here. Okay, I'm going to tell you this because we are friends. You want to thrift these. It'll be cheaper. It will be more unique. And it's fun. Okay? Just so we're level here. Okay. And then the last one for this category is milk glass. I enjoy it because it can hold real plants. They come as little trinkets, as vases, as cups. The next category I have is for the cozy people. I want you to think, when you shop for these people, a little forest animal sleeping in bed underground with a quilt. Okay? Have that in your head? Let's go. First we have a lace table runner. Simple enough. Followed by faux candles, which I love. I have them on my personal list again this year. They look super realistic at night. They're great. They warm up a room. Then we have thick socks, either wool or cotton. I prefer cotton personally, but wool is like more of the traditional. I would recommend going with more earth tones rather than stark whites or blacks. Next is a quilted throw blanket. Again, I would recommend staying away from super dark colors unless you know how the person decorates, and staying more with earth tones. For the most part, when you think of vintage, you want to think of earthy tones. Next, we have a sun catcher crystal. These are really cute. They come in all different designs. Some are simple and some are a little more ornate, but they create little rainbows all around the room, and it just feels super cozy and magical. Next is stringed fairy lights. I would recommend looking for the ones that look almost more like they look outdoor with the Edison light bulb rather than the LED. But again, it depends on who you are shopping for, because you know whoever you're shopping for way better than I ever will, but that is my recommendation with that. Next we have an embroidered lampshade. This is This kind of ties into more of that storybook look that I wanted you to think of while we go through this category. It creates that vintage feel while still adding a little bit of interest to a room, and who doesn't want some interest in a room? Don't have a boring room. There needs to be interest. So, an embroidered lampshade. Staying on the same note, we have velvet or embroidered pillows. I do not have either of those, but I do think that they always warm up a room. They make things feel extra cozy, especially that velvet. But embroidery, once again, brings in that interest to the room. And then in this category, I also have an incense burner, an oil diffuser, or even candles. For the oil diffusers, I do not know enough about essential oils to recommend what scents to do because there can be safety concerns when it comes to pets and children. So keep that in mind for whoever you're shopping for. And then for candles, which is where my thing is, I love a good candle. I like the warm vanillas and the classic bakery scents. Year round, that's how my house smells, is like vanilla, because it creates that cozy, kind of nostalgic environment. And finally, something that's near and dear to me, it's traditional in my family, we have these Swedish chimes which spin with a candle. Again, going back to that warm glow of the candle, and it also creates a little ding sound. And I think it is a great cozy addition to any vintage inspired house. Our next category is books and paper items. For this, I want you to think of a library with really tall shelves and ladders and that old book smell. First, we have journals. Love a good journal. I'm hiding my list within my journal currently. I would recommend going with something leather bound or a darker color rather than like a neon pink one. Just my 2 cents. Then I would also recommend hardcover copies of classics. Think Tolkien, think Shakespeare, Charles Dickens. Next is pressed flower bookmarks. This is great for the people who read. Next is a wax seal kit. We have a friend who always uses his wax seal and it is the coolest thing. Next is a fountain pen and ink, like a true fountain pen where you dip the ink in. Next is a botanical illustration book. I grew up with one of these. It always sat in our living room on the coffee table, and to tie into the nostalgic factor of the olden days. Next is a letter writing kit. When my husband and I were dating, before we got married, we were long distance for about a year, and I got one of these kits before I even started like my channel or really embracing the vintage side that I love. And this was great. I loved it. Still on that same vein is vintage inspired postcards. And finally, I am not sure how to describe this other than like a guided journal. This is something that I see all the time if I go into the Hallmark store. It's something that you like give to a parent and they can fill it out so that someday their grandkids can read it. If that's something that this person is into with like that family nostalgia, I would try to find one for them to fill out for like their future grandkids. Let's move on to the next category, which is crafting and DIY. For this, I want you to think of like Geppetto's workshop from Pinocchio. Okay? And first on this list is something that I have personally never used, but I'm hoping to get it this year for Christmas, and that is Retique. I have seen people like Rachel Maxey use it, and it has wood particles in the paint, and then you can stain that, and it can turn anything into looking like real wood. Next is a needle felting kit. These feel very vintage to me because a lot of Victorian homes on their Christmas trees had needle felted ornaments. And now it's like kind of coming back. So you can buy a kit so that they can learn to do it themselves and make their own vintage inspired ornaments. Next is for really the DIY people, and that is Rub and Buff. I love this stuff. Because I'm currently pregnant, I've not been using it because it does have a very strong smell that I don't trust when I am pregnant. But it does turn things into a warmer tone. I used it in my DIY stained glass lamp video to turn the base of the lamp from silver to gold, and it looked great. It really warmed it up. Staying in that same category, and still on that vintage inspired lamp, I highly recommend Gallery Glass, which is what I used for that, and it can create realistic looking stained glass, and it came out beautiful. It had a little bit of a learning curve, but once you know what you're doing, it's great, and I think it would be great for anyone who enjoys like the Tiffany style of look. Next is an easy one, and it is a vintage inspired color / paint by number. This is great for people who just want to sit down and turn off their brains and still create something instead of like scrolling on TikTok. This is great for them. Next is an embroidery kit. You have to be kind of careful with this one because you need to know whether or not the person's actually going to do it. I personally have been given quite a few embroidery kits, and I have always started them, and I have yet to finish one. So do take note of that, but I think this is great for people who like to sew or want to learn how to sew. Next is watercolors. You can get these, you can get like the basic kid kind, or you can go all the way up and get really nice expensive kinds of them, and I think lots of people who like to craft will also use them as well. Next is I have vintage inspired ink stamps. This is great for if you want to add it to a letter, if you want to put it on a design that you're doing. Next on this list is something that I can't find a kit for, but I would recommend getting them tape your candles and then the little tea candles in different colors so that they can light it and paint their own candle. Next on this list, I have a practical apron. This is, think cotton, think something that can get dirty, think dark earth tones, terracotta, brown. Keep it simple, one that they will not feel bad if they get dirty, if it gets paint on it. That's what it's meant to do. And finally in this category, I recommend a terrarium kit. I think that would be such a cool idea. The next category, I spent a lot of time on this one, and I honestly was thinking of my grandma the whole time I made this, and that is clothing and accessories. For this category, I want you to think of like a subtle something's a little different, and also that they wouldn't look super out of place in like a Victorian train station. And let's start out strong, hopping straight on into it with penny loafers. These remind me of my grandmother. They are super easy to either dress up or dress down. They look good with both skirts and jeans, and they have that vintage feel. To me, they feel kind of 80s, but I also think you can dress it further back in age, like to the Victorian era. So they're super versatile. If you get a good quality one, then they will last forever, and if not, then they're pretty easily replaceable. So okay, next are these book bags. It takes classic covers of books and makes them into a bag. Next on the list are neck scarves. These are really popular like in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, but I think they're making a comeback, which I'm super stoked about, and they're a great way to just throw on an accessory to an outfit and have it be a little more unique. Make that Next is fingerless knit gloves. Cannot confirm for everywhere, but where we are in southern Arizona, it is always too warm for gloves. And to me, it feels very like Victorian orphan. Next, I have hair ribbons and bows. Again, this is not for everyone. This really depends on the person that you are shopping for. But once again, it's an easy way to add an accessory to an outfit. Next, I have an antique-inspired brooch. Again, super easy to add to any outfit. And next, I have a knit cardigan. Again, say it with me, y'all. Earth tones. Then I also have a wool beret, or really any beret. Cotton would probably also work. Then I have silver or gold belts, not like big chunky belts, but little interesting ones, bring some more interest to the outfit. And then finally in this category, I have a mini pocket watch. Our next category is nature and outdoors. I want you to think of Kiki's house from Kiki's delivery service. And first up, we have wind chimes. And then I also have on this list dried flowers, a good terrarium jar. I made a terrarium earlier this year and I'm still obsessed with it. If you want to get them a living plant, which I have plants all around my place, I highly recommend getting a pothos. I've only ever met one person who's ever had theirs die, and other than that, they seem to be indestructible. So, if this person you're buying for really likes plants but is not good at keeping them alive, a pothos, way to go. Next is a mushroom identification guide or a local plant guide to like what's local to you. I can't link that for you because I don't know where you live, but I can link the mushroom guide, preferably with ones that have hand-drawn drawings, but that's not required. Next, I have pressed flower frames. This brings that botanical feel to a gallery wall or to a desk. The next one's kind of funny, but I like the little terracotta chia pets, and they have little garden gnomes where their beards grow. So I thought that was fun, both kind of whimsical and outdoors gardeny, but inside. Next, I have plant hangers. These can look like baskets. They can look like macrame. People do when you run out of space on the walls and the floor. you take to the skies. Next is anything Lego botanical, specifically the ones that come with the Lego pot, because these pots often feel very old style rather than like the modern minimalistic pots. Finally, in this category, I have plant window clings. Our next category is music and games. I want you to think of the vibe of the original Clue game. If you could find it in that house, this is probably a good idea. So like a music box, like vintage inspired puzzles, the book I Spy Treasure Hunt, which is kind of how I decorate and also where I get a lot of my inspiration. I would say board games with the original retro designs. Next is like a book nook set. You can buy these little kits and people can make them and then put them in their little bookshelf. Next is kind of like the classic record player. Following that, the next thing that I would recommend, often in tandem, is a vinyl record. You can get both old records, and I know that modern music also come out on records. So if, like, let's say they're a big Swiftie, pretty sure Taylor Swift makes vinyls. Then something that I love and I use almost every day is I have a old radio replica that has Bluetooth. So I highly recommend these. You can get them from different eras depending on that person's taste. Next is the board game Butterfly Garden. I haven't played it, but I love the aesthetic. And then finally, another board game that I have listed is the game Labyrinth. Not the movie Labyrinth. We love David Bowie, but this is the game Labyrinth. It's a puzzle game. Highly recommend that one. Next, we have the whimsical and unexpected. This is one of my favorite categories. I love adding little unexpected and whimsical things around my home. When you think like 90s Celestial, Merlin, Fantasia, that stuff. So first we have fun raw iron hooks. This became its own category because I really thought that this one, like with the face, super cute. It's a little unexpected. It's kind of that whimsy where like people have to look at it twice. Next is the door hinge decor where you can like put them on top of the hinge. I love these. I think they're fun. I do have a 2-year-old and I'm going to have another baby soon, so I cannot have those because to me they are a choking hazard, so keep that in mind. If the person you're shopping for has little kids, keep that in mind. Next is another Lego, and that is the Ship in the Bottle Lego, which we have, and I love it because it has like that old feel of a ship and bottle, but it's Lego. Next is like one of these weather stations. My dad always called it a Cape Cod weather station, where the water level changes and ours also shows the humidity as well as the temperature. Next, I have apothecary style glass jars. These can be used for so many things. I really enjoy putting plants in them, but they can also be used for little trinkets or like glitter. If people want to go more fantasy, they can add glitter to it and water and have it be potions. They're super versatile. You can either make it more fancy or just give them glass bottles. Either way, I think they are always a hit. Next, I have wall oddities. These are what I look for when I go to Comic-Con, Ren Fair. I look for wall oddities. Like we have a few. So depending on that person's style. Next for this category, I have fairy garden miniatures. These are fun because they can both go outside and inside. And they just add a little bit of whimsy to any space. I mean, who doesn't want a sleeping fairy? Next is kind of a 70s vibe, and that is a beaded curtain. You can also get them with little sun catchers in them, and if we did not have cats, we would definitely have this. But because we have 2 little cats who live here, we will not be getting these. But for someone who doesn't have cats or children, this is a way to add interest to a room and still keep it whimsical. Again, this is not like old. I would put this more like 70s vibes, so keep that in mind. And finally, I have a stained glass lamp. You can get these so that they're either tall or like the little oddities. And if you made it this far, we've finally made it to the stocking stuffers. For this, I want you to think old home. Okay, first, I have the full Edison lamp light bulbs. These are LED and they still have that old look of the light bulb, but it does not get super hot. This is what I use in my stained glass that I made because it's plastic, and it works great. Next, I have tin lip gloss, followed by nail polish. In the United States, red is the traditional color associated with the 1940s for victory. I personally do not like wearing a whole lot of nail polish, so I prefer like the My Nails But Better look. So these are light blushes, pinks, things that are a little more clear so that you can still see the natural nail underneath, but it makes it look a little more even. Next, I have glass perfume bottles. These can be both functional or decorative. Next, I have a wooden hairbrush. Not only is it probably better for your hair than plastic, but you personally can customize them, and they just have like that Cinderella feel. Followed by a compact mirror. It's good for a purse. You can leave it in the car. You can leave it on your nightstand. They're very vintage feeling and practical. Next, I have two different kinds of night lights. One is a mushroom night light for the people who are a little more whimsical side, and then I also have these that look like candles for the more vintage side, depending on the person you're shopping for, but I like both of these two options. Next, I have magnetic curtain ties for the people who have curtains and want to tie them back. These, you can get them botanical, you can get them silver, you can get them all different kinds. Not only are they practical, they're also pretty inexpensive, and they add more interest to a room. Next, I have trinket holders. So these are things like, they can be milk glass, like earlier, or they can have little figures on top. They can be different designs, depending on the person you're shopping for again. Also on the list, I have outlet covers. These, again, add interest to a room. They're a very subtle change, but they make a world of difference. And finally, I have wooden spoons. These are great for both the aesthetic, for both whimsical and for vintage, but also they are very practical and they are naturally antibacterial. So love a good wooden spoon. There you have it. There is my list, my gift guide for you. I hope you found this helpful and interesting, and if you made it this far, let me know if there's anything that you really think is missing that should have been on this list. If you're new here and you like cozy with a bit of chaos and always that vintage inspiration, feel free to stick around, and I will be seeing you in my next video. Toodles!